You find that discipline and you find that passion that you really want to pursue, and combining the athleticism with acting and entertainment. Pro wrestling really brings out the best in both worlds. So was wrestling something you enjoyed watching as a kid?
There was like a brief little time period that I watched wrestling. I would watch it on the Saturday morning shows, and every once in a while, my dad would let me stay up and watch Saturday night's main event. But it wasn't something that I was crazy about. And then I don't remember what happened. I think I got in trouble or something. Go figure. And and he sort of told me that you're not watching wrestling anymore. So I stopped watching. And at the time, like the friend group that I had, nobody really watched wrestling. It wasn't a big thing. So I was one of those guys that grew up thinking wrestling was stupid, that it was fake, and you know. And then fast forward to I think I was 19 or 20, and I was at a friend's house, and we were just kind of hanging out, and he was a guy that always watched wrestling, and I would always give him a hard time about it. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you watching that crap? And he just sort of forced the issue. It was like, tonight we're gonna watch Monday Night Raw. There's this guy who's like tearing up the scene right now, like, and so I begrudgingly watched it, and I heard the glass break, and then saw this guy drive to the ring in a black pickup truck with a smoking skull in the front, with a 6-pack of beer on his lap, flipping the camera guy. I wish I could find the actual like date and time that I like the very first thing that I ever watched. But I was like, just the way that he carried himself was very like believable. It was something when I did watch wrestling, I thought it was kind of hokey, and some of the characters were a little over the top and stuff. That really bothered me. But the way Austin carried himself, I was like, oh, that guy's a badass. So I started watching to see like what he would do. And then and then my roommates at the time, they were watching wrestling because wrestling was just starting to take off. And then I started watching it, and The Undertaker's pretty cool too. The Nation of Domination is pretty funny. And then The Rock split off, and it was pretty soon. It was wrestling was just everywhere, and we would go to parties. That's all people would talk about. I would go to work, and all the guys, I worked as a nuclear security officer at a nuclear power plant. We would sit in a box for 12 hours a night, and we would just talk to each other on the phone about wrestling. Did you see Raw? So
it really was that whole 90s wrestling boom period. It was really, as you said, it was all over the place. You couldn't escape it, couldn't get away from it. WWF.
Like Austin was doing the Got Milk thing. All the superstars were on the covers of TV Guide. It was really, really, it was kind of a cool time to be alive.
Yeah, I mean, WrestleMania 15, 16, you had, Boys to Men do the national anthem. You had Ice-T there coming down to the ring with the Godfather. I mean, you had, your Limp Bizkits involved with some of the promo packages. I mean, it really was, you had to be there to experience it. Yep. And so
WrestleMania 14 was my very first, like, I love this. This is awesome. Seeing Austin win the title. I watched the build-up. I only probably watched the build-up to that match for maybe 3 or 4 months max. But I was just like, okay, I'm all in. And then I was at a party one night, and somebody said, hey, you can go to wrestling school. Because it never dawned on me how one actually gets into this line of work. And I just thought, like, I'm skinny. I was 180 pounds, like, not super athletic. Like, I'm probably not going to be a pro wrestler. And no, you can go to wrestling school. One of the ladies that I work with, she has a son that does it. And so that's all I could think about. And I remember I went home that night and I got on the internet, and it wasn't like, we didn't have Google at the time. It was like Ask Jeeves or something like that. Right. And like,
AOL.
look up. Yeah. Yep. And it was, I looked up I thought there's no way there's going to be a wrestling school anywhere near me. So I thought it's going to have to be like New York, Chicago, or LA. And Chicago was about 6 hours away from me. Actually, a couple less, like 3.5, 4 hours. And I thought, man, if I find a school, I have every other weekend off. I can drive down. I can sleep in my car. And this was like, I didn't know anything about the business. I'd never read Mick Foley's book where he actually did stuff like that. And so I looked up wrestling schools in Chicago area, found one, reached out to him, left a message. And then the next day, a guy called me from Green Bay and said, "Hey, I got your number from this guy in Chicago. I'm starting a wrestling school. You'd be my first student. Would you like to come up and have a tryout?" So it was like I think it was $175 for the tryout. I went up, took a couple bumps, ran the ropes, did a few things, and then went out to eat. And yeah, I'm all in. I remember seeing the ring for the very first time, and it was like a 16-foot ring with rips and tears and blood stains and, duct tape everywhere and these wobbly, floppy little ropes. And I was just like, that's awesome. I can't describe to you the feeling that I had when I was okay with it.
It's basically showing you the sacrifices and literally the blood, sweat, and tears and the hardships of the business, of how you really have to put in a lot of effort to make it in professional wrestling.
You really do. You do. And from that moment forward, I don't remember where it was that where the switch flipped for me, where I was like, I can actually do this. But I knew that I was going to give it my all. And at some point I realized like how I could reach out to WWE was going to be like, I got their numbers and I got an email address, or actually it wasn't even the email address. It was the actual address. So I was able to reach out to them. And from that point forward, I just started I started sending tapes, so I would train and then I would send a tape. And the very first tape that I ever sent, I heard something back from Kevin Kelly. And then it was like, okay, here's what you need to do. Here are the steps you need to take to get better. So I just started working that way.